So today I want to pose a hypothetical question. What if Cyberpunked never happened? First of all, let me explain what I mean by that phrase. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that was released in December of 2020. It had one of the worst launches in video game history. Its release is now the stuff of legends, and other studios have continuously pushed their own games back, like Assassin's Creed Shadows, Fable 4, and Come Deliverance 2, because they know the consequences of releasing an unpolished product. CD Projekt Red took that hit when they released Cyberpunk back in 2020. The game that was released was sold for both this gen and last gen consoles. It should not have been. On current gen, it had only a fraction of the features that developers had promised it would contain, and it was clear that the product was not at its full completion. But on the other hand, for last gen consoles, it was a much worse situation. The game barely ran, had tons of glitches, and was essentially unplayable. Refunds went up, reviews went down. Basically, what had promised to be one of the greatest games of all time was now up in flames. CD Projekt Red, who had established themselves as one of the greatest reputations within the gaming industry, with their previous releases like Witcher 3, were now branded as thieves, liars, and worst of all, greedy. A big YouTuber released a video back then entitled Cyberpunked, which summarized the awful launch so well, and is now the term that I associate with the game's dreadful release. Since then, the game has been patched, updated, and amended. New quests have been added, the user interface was switched up, the leveling system received a complete overhaul, and many of those features that were missing during release have finally arrived. And then they added the new DLC, Phantom Liberty, that added additional content. So the game that was released in 2020 is a totally different experience to the one today. I've now completed this game 5 times from start to finish. I don't do that with just any game. But still, the game does not receive the accolades that the game of today deserves. So I ask the question, what if Cyberpunked never happened? What if the game came out in 2025? As it is today, in its current state, and 2020's launch never happened? Would it be considered one of the greatest RPGs of all time? Well, in this video, I plan on answering those very questions. So without further ado, let's get into it. And just a quick side note, if you are new here and you love RPGs like Cyberpunk, please consider subscribing. Alright, let's get straight into it. So let's start with Cyberpunk 2077 and the history of its disastrous launch in 2020. The developer, CD Projekt Red, promised a lot to their fans. Their last game was The Witcher 3, which was undeniably a masterpiece. It received high scores from all over and it won Game of the Year in 2015. The open world RPG delivered with fantastic writing and rich content. It is considered by many, myself included, as one of the greatest games ever made. It had 2 additional DLCs added on later as well, both of which were not only fantastic, but well priced. CD Projekt Red released the Blood and Wine expansion for Witcher 3 and it was the size of a full game, but for just half the price. It was voted as the greatest DLC of all time. They over-delivered on what was expected on a DLC, charged less than what they could have, and said it was because fans deserved it. Essentially, CD Projekt Red not only delivered a great game, they established a reputation as a trustworthy developer who respected their fans. When they announced Cyberpunk 2077, everybody expected a lot. During an interview prior to the game's launch, the representatives made a lot of promises which included purchasable properties within the game, customizable vehicles, a wanted system similar to that in GTA, the ability to enter every building within the game, and so much more. But the biggest promise they made was that the game ran smooth on both current gen and last gen. After several delays, the game finally came out in December of 2020, and it was bad. For current gen, the game ran well enough, but a lot of the promises that had been made were not present. Although the game was a solid entry, what was promised was not achieved. You couldn't enter every building, you couldn't customize cars or buy any property at all. The wanted system was a mess. But the biggest promise that they broke is when they said that it would run well on last-gen software. It did not. It was immediately apparent that the game had not even been tested. Before long, videos were up all over YouTube showcasing the glitches, issues, and the crashes. Fans' disappointment flooded social media and news outlets documented the disastrous launch that they'd just witnessed. It was so bad, Sony took the game off the PlayStation Store. Over 30,000 refunds were issued. It was probably the worst release that I have ever witnessed in gaming history. Not only did the game get a bad rep, but after all the hard work that CD Projekt Red had put in to earn their reputation, suddenly that trust was broken. CD Projekt Red stated that it had taken the wrong approach with development of its Xbox One and PS4 versions, and the co-founder released a video statement reflecting on the run-up to the game's launch. He stated, "I and the entire leadership team are deeply sorry for this, and this video is me publicly owning up to that." There's other videos on YouTube that go into more depth on the launch if you want more details, but it was at this point that CD Projekt Red would work to redeem themselves. Now, they could have just walked away, or made the game playable, but they actually put in a lot of work. Patches 1.2 and 1.3 released in March and August of 21 respectively, and again they worked to clean up the game with the bugs and the structure. Then in February of 2022, the big patch arrived, patch 1.5. This patch began to finally allow the game to showcase its full potential. As well as performance and ray tracing modes being added, the game added new content, including 4 new apartments to purchase, character customization, new combat AI, crowd improvements making NPCs react like real people, realistic traffic, new combat, new perks, new cyberware, new quests, and UI improvement as well. Patch 1.6 then added more requested features like the ability to preview clothes in shops, arcade games were added, and after the success of the Netflix show, Edge Runners, players new and old began returning to the game to find it in a much better state. Patch 2.0 released in September of 2023, and if the previous patch showed the game finally at its best level, Patch 2.0 felt like the game that they perhaps wanted to make all along. People finally had their police chases and vehicle combat. Crime system was added, everything was finally to the level that the developers had promised. Just a few days later, and the DLC expansion Phantom Liberty released for next gen. Although CD Projekt Red had managed to get the last gen version of the game running well, they knew that they had to let it go and focus on the current gen for the new release. Phantom Liberty released to much positive reviews, with PC Gamer giving it an 87%, IGN giving it a 9 out of 10, and it averages 4.5 stars on Google out of 5. It featured an acting performance from Idris Elba, adding to the cast with Keanu Reeves. The new expansion was fantastic and really upped the levels of the base game, finally implementing well-written quests which had decision making that actually impacted the world. The final patch, 2.1, added romantic hangouts, metro transportation, gang fights, street vendors, and bar interaction mods. Now, everything was there that they had promised. Since then, they've added even more stuff including vehicle customization, 2 fully playable arcade games, a reputation system, and additional content for the player. The game was now at an even better stage than CD Projekt Red had originally promised. They got it to where they wanted it to be and then added more on top. The game today is absolutely incredible, and if you haven't tried it since its Phantom Liberty expansion, I highly recommend it. And thanks to today's sponsor, now you can try it at a huge discount. Today's video sponsor is Instant Gaming, and they save you money on video games. Due to the fact that they get their keys directly from the source, they're able to offer games for far less than the retail value. They have over 700,000 reviews on Trustpilot and they have a 4.7 out of 5 star rating, so they do what they say. For example, you can get the Cyberpunk Ultimate Edition, which contains both the base game and the Phantom Liberty DLC, for just $27.83. Or the new Monster Hunter Wilds is normally £70, here for just $41.83. Or the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows would normally be £70, but here for just $42.08. You buy a few games through Instant Gaming, and in the long term, it saves you a lot of money. That way, you can have extra money to get more games. And it's super easy to use. You just pick your game, pick your platform, make your purchase, and then you get your code. Enter your code in on your preferred system, and voila, there it is, ready to go. So if you want to save some money on video games, whilst also supporting the channel, click on the first link down in the description. And thank you for Instant Gaming for sponsoring today's video. So, what if Cyberpunked never happened? What if the game came out today solely for current gen, in its current state with DLC and all updates attached? Would this be considered one of gaming's greatest RPGs? Well, first of all, let me go over everything the game gets right. So first of all, Night City itself is incredible. It offers so much content. The graphics are absolutely stunning, and it's arguably one of the best looking games ever released. The city is gigantic, and there is so much to see and experience. The ambiance and mood and the aesthetics of the buildings and the roads and just the lights at night are so unique, and it is easily one of the most immersive worlds that I've ever played in. You can tell straight away just from looking around how much detail and effort and handcrafted content went into every inch of this city. But it's not just the way it looks. There's a lot to see as well. There are over 200 side quests in this game, all handwritten with actual characters and voice acting. Then there is 95 gigs to go and complete as well. These are mini missions but have storylines attached as well. They have different ways to approach them, so you can use stealth, you can go straight through the front door and just shoot everybody, but they all have their own unique elements with like mini dungeons. And then there's over 150 NCPD scanner quests too. These are little smaller ones, but each one is handcrafted as well and has a mini story attached. The world now features purchasable homes, shops, ripper docks, arcades, explorable interiors. This game will keep you invested for hours, but the best thing is all of the content is unique. Each side quest in this game is so well written. The way that CD Projekt Red writes side quests is probably the best that I've seen within gaming. Essentially, you'll meet one character and do a quest with them. Whilst doing that quest, you'll be introduced to two other characters. Later on in the game, those characters will call you up and offer you a side quest of their own. Every side quest gives you unique dialogue. They contain unique characters and plot lines with separate voice acting, and they all leave an impression. They also utilize motion capture as well. So every quest in this game, there are no radiant quests. Every quest feels handcrafted and real, just up to the standards that was set by the previous game, Witcher 3. Even the gigs are well structured. A gig is given to you by a fixer, and it is a separate objective to any main or side quests. Essentially, it will be a go and save someone quest or go and retrieve this item, but rather than being a fetch quest, each quest is unique. So you'll go to a separate location for each one, there will be a plot line involved, and there are several ways of which you can carry out the mission. You can use stealth, you can find secret backways or crawl through vents, you can go in all guns a-blazing, you can approach it in many different ways. So although these are considered side quests, the quality within still surpasses many other game side quests overall. And then finally you have your NCPD scanners. These are basically mini objectives all over the map, but they're not just copy and paste. Each location does feel unique, and when you get there, there are stories attached. There'll be little notes left around. In some cases, when you get to a location, you'll receive a phone call from a Night City police officer who will explain an entire backstory, for example about a gang leader that owns that territory and how they need to be taken out. So even though these are mini side quests, they still are all unique, and some even lead to other side quests. So nothing in this game is just copy and paste or fetch quest. It is all worth your time and offers a unique experience. There is always something to do, and it always offers an experience that is at least a little different to any other. The player can also purchase over 50 vehicles in the game, some combat ready, and all with unique interiors. Over 100 unique weapons can be found. It is, in my opinion, one of the greatest open world games that you can experience, ever. And then we have the writing. The characters and stories written here are some of the most believable and memorable that I've seen in gaming. The introduction to the game and Jackie Wells as a friend and his backstory is probably one of the greatest introductions that I've seen to a game. But besides that, we have Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand and other characters who come in throughout V's adventure. The motion capture system is also among some of the best that I've seen in gaming, alongside Red Dead Redemption 2 within an open world. Combat is also really crisp now, so you get an array of weapons, and the aiming and the dodging and shooting is so rewarding when you make a headshot. But besides that, you can also use melee combat with your fists, which can be upgraded at a Ripperdoc. Then you have melee weapons with things like samurai swords and baseball bats. But not just that, you can use stealth to attack, you can sneak up behind and attack people, and you can also use quick hacks, which allow you to attack people from distance, sort of like as a cyber ninja. So the amount of combat in the game is extremely rewarding because there are many playstyles that you can select from. So what this game gets right is its giant open world is so immersive and so beautiful to look at. You really feel like the world is alive, and on top of that, all the side quests, the side quests and the side quests are all unique in some type of way, so it feels rewarding to do everything on the map. There are also loads of shops that you can go to, bars you can hang out at, you can hang out with your friends in your apartments that you purchase, there's activities you can do at your apartments. Basically, this game is absolutely brimming with content, more than most any other game that I've ever played. Now, although I personally love this game, it does have some things that still hold it back. So for example, its leveling system, a lot of people don't really like this because you can't really unlock all the perk points. You have to choose a certain path, which means sacrificing some things for another. When the game first came out, it utilized a different leveling system, and some people didn't like it, but some loved it. And now with the new leveling system, it has the same reaction. Those people who love the old one aren't keen on this one, and those that didn't like the old one like this one. So the leveling system does not meet the standards that have been set by previous games like Come Deliverance 2 or even Skyrim. The sense of achievement or improvement is not there as well. When you play a game like Elden Ring or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, when you start out the game you feel incredibly weak, and it feels rewarding to level up as battles get easier. In this game, everything tends to scale to your level, so you don't really have any difficult moments, and when you level up, it doesn't even seem like it makes much of a difference. That is definitely one thing that holds it back. The decision making that was evident in The Witcher 3 is just not in this game either. Now, ironically, there is a lot that you can do in the game and make decisions that do impact you later on, but you wouldn't know it unless you played the game 5 times. So, for example, in The Witcher 3, it would ask you to make a decision like put the baby in the oven or don't put the baby in the oven. You would immediately know what decision you'd made. It was right in front of you. In Cyberpunk, as an example, if you get caught by a security camera during a mission, later on, the enemy will tail you and attack you. This has no correlation. You would have no idea that that security camera would come back to haunt you later on unless you went to Google and typed in, "Why am I being attacked now?" And you wouldn't know that being attacked now is different unless you played the game previous and not been attacked. So, although some decision making and different outcomes are within the game, the evidence of them is not as clear as The Witcher 3. And the final thing is the fact the game is first person only. You cannot go into third person. So although the game gives you so many different costumes you can wear, so many ways that you can dress, it really doesn't have an impact because you never see your character. In Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, that entire game is in first person, but when you speak to someone, you get to see Henry and get to see how he's dressed, what he's wearing, so you go and get your hair cut. You continuously change the way Henry looks because you get to see him on screen. In Cyberpunk, you never see yourself, so although you may have different clothes, wearing them doesn't make a difference because you wouldn't know if you were naked or if you're wearing a very fancy suit, you'll never get to see it until you go to your wardrobe to change clothes again. So those are the things that I would say hold the game back. But in my opinion, despite these flaws, the Cyberpunk of today is one of the best open world offline RPGs that I've ever played. When I log in to play this game, I immediately become immersed and feel a part of this world. With the amount of content that is available, one cannot help but keep themselves busy. The open world is one of the largest, most impressive and graphically beautiful worlds that one can experience. The gameplay loop and combat is incredibly crisp and satisfying. The game offers different approaches including stealth, melee combat, weapon combat and hacking skills, making each fight unique and enjoyable. The side quests and the gigs are all unique to one another and well written, and contain characters that have their own personality and motivations that leave an impression on the player. The driving mechanics feel up to the standards set by Grand Theft Auto 5, and vehicle selection is incredible. The homes that you can purchase actually have activities to keep the player busy, and the featured acting performances of Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba really hit the spot. So in short, this game is incredible and is up to the standards that were set by other great titles that we've seen recently released in this genre, like The Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and Elden Ring. If this game was to release today, exactly how it is today, with all the DLC and the features added since its launch, in its playable state of today, I think it would be a consideration for Game of the Year. If this game had released like this last year in 2024, I generally think it would have beat out competitors like Astrobot and Black Myth Wukong and gone on to win the coveted prize. If this game was released as it is now, I generally think we would be discussing this as one of the greatest RPGs of all time. But it didn't release this year, or even last year. It released in 2020, in a totally different state. Instead, despite the game being successful now and selling over 30 million copies, it still does not receive the recognition it deserves, and truth be told, it may never get that recognition. When we talk about the greatest RPGs of all time, we will discuss the Kingdom Come Deliverances, the Baldur's Gate 3s, the Witcher 3s, but unfortunately, Cyberpunk is never brought into that discussion. You see, people are not quick to forget. Cyberpunk did change the gaming world forever, just not in the way they may have hoped. You see, after the disastrous launch and the amount of backlash that the game received, other studios took notice. Prior to this, we'd received many games that were unfinished and patched later on. No Man's Sky, Final Fantasy 15, many games had come out before Cyberpunk, and although people had been disappointed, it had never been on this scale before. CD Projekt Red were publicly shamed, sued and reprimanded so badly that its failure travelled far and wide, and the message was received by all major publishers and gaming studios. Nobody wants to be the next Cyberpunk. That is why we see so many games nowadays delay their release, like Fable 4, Assassin's Creed Shadows, because they know the consequences of releasing a game unfinished could result in the same outcome. CD Projekt Red have worked tirelessly since the initial release. They have transformed this game from a non-functional disaster into one of the greatest RPGs of our time that offers more than the producers even originally promised, and yet they have never really been forgiven. Not 100%. That stain has impacted this game and CD Projekt Red since that day, and this game will never truly be cleared of that tag. Whenever I speak to someone about how great Cyberpunk is today, they always reply with, "Yeah, but do you remember when it launched?" It's just one of those things that will follow them forever. But it is a huge shame, because at the end of the day, this game is incredible. Some of the best first-person shooting combat that I've experienced in an open-world game. The driving of the cars matches that of GTA 5, and the side quests and riding are up to the standards of Witcher 3. The game is, without a doubt, one of my favourite games of all time, and should be involved during the discussions of the greatest RPGs of all time. It has everything now that a player could ever want and more. Although it lacks in some aspects, it exceeds in others. Cyberpunk 2077 is now one of the greatest games ever made, thanks to years of dedicated updates, overhauls, and the Phantom Liberty expansion, which refined its RPG systems, combat, AI, and open world immersion. Night City feels alive in a way that few games can match, offers deep storytelling, meaningful choices, and an unparalleled atmosphere. The game's richly detailed world, emotional depth, and refined mechanics showcase the true vision that CD Projekt Red originally intended. However, it's unfortunate that its disastrous launch in 2020, filled with bugs, performance issues, and broken promises, permanently impacted its reputation for many players. Despite its redemption, Cyberpunk will always carry the shadow of its past, making it a tragic example of how a rough launch can define a game's legacy, even when it ultimately delivers on its potential. So, what if Cyberpunked never happened? What if the game was never released on last gen or came out in 2020? What if it was released today? Would it be considered one of the greats? I would argue yes. It would have been nominated for Game of the Year and possibly won the award outright. Many would put this game into their list of greatest RPGs of all time, and it would be considered one of the games that raised the bar in the gaming genre overall. But it did come out in 2020, and then it took them an additional 4 years to get the game where they originally envisioned it. The fact that this game came out 4 years before it was ready shows how much pressure the developers can come under when it comes to investors and deadlines. And this should be a lesson to all gaming studios and investors of the future. It is better to wait and release the product at its full potential rather than rush something just to please stockholders. Because although the cash injection may provide instant gratification, the long-term negative consequences will be felt for a much longer time afterwards. Anyway, that's it for this one, but what do you guys think? Have you played Cyberpunk recently? Do you feel that it now lives up to its original hype? Do you consider it one of the great RPGs? And if not, what's it missing that would earn that title? Or do you refuse to play it based on the original launch? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm Av Gaming, where we do video game analysis, identifying what makes great games great and what could make good games great as well. Thanks for watching. Av out.